The morning started like any other morning on Haven's Gate. Farmers went to their fields. Shop owners opened their stores. Children walked to school with their parents. Dr. Yuna Han stood in her laboratory, pretending to study samples of local plant life, while actually monitoring the military scanners hidden in her equipment. The scanners showed exactly what she expected to see. Veklari warships were moving into position around every human colony in the sector. She tapped her communication device twice, a signal that meant nothing to casual observers, but told military command that the invasion was beginning. Throughout the colony, other agents received the same signal. Teachers excused themselves from classrooms and walked to hidden elevator shafts. Farmers set down their tools and climbed into vehicles that had never actually been used for farming. Shop owners locked their doors and descended into basements that went much deeper than anyone suspected. On the surface, Haven's Gate still looked peaceful. Below the surface, 10,000 soldiers moved to their combat positions in tunnels and bunkers that had taken 5 years to build. Weapons platforms powered up. Shield generators came online. The civilians above had no idea that their peaceful colony was actually a military fortress waiting to spring its trap. In orbit above the colony, the Veklari battle fleet emerged from hyperspace exactly on schedule. 16 warships, each one powerful enough to destroy a city with a single shot. War Queen Vex Prime commanded the fleet from her flagship, a massive vessel that looked like a giant insect made of metal and weapons. "Scan the colony," Vex Prime ordered. "Confirm there are no defenses." Her sensor officer checked the readings. No shields, no weapons platforms, no military vessels. The colony appears to be completely undefended, just as our intelligence predicted. "Perfect," Vex Prime said, her mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "Begin the cleansing. Activate the bioweapons first. Let the humans die quietly in their homes. Then we will bombard the colony to ensure nothing survives." In her laboratory, Yuna watched her hidden scanner as the activation signal was transmitted to the nanoweapons that had been distributed in food over the past 5 years. For a moment she felt a cold fear. What if her antidote did not work? What if she had made a mistake in her calculations? Then the moment passed and nothing happened. The nanoweapons received their signal, tried to activate, and were immediately neutralized by the countermeasures in every human's bloodstream. Throughout the colony, people continued their daily activities, completely unaware that the Veklari had just tried to kill them all. On the Veklari flagship, the bioweapon officer stared at his display in confusion. "War Queen, the weapons are not responding. The humans should be dying, but life signs remain stable." "Try again," Vex Prime ordered, feeling the first touch of concern. The signal was sent again. Again, nothing happened. The humans continued living, breathing, working as if the most sophisticated biological weapon the Veklari possessed was nothing but air. "How is this possible?" Vex Prime demanded. "Those weapons have never failed before." She did not know the answer, but she would never have time to figure it out, because at that moment, Haven's Gate revealed its true nature. The ground split open in 100 places as massive weapons platforms rose from hidden bunkers. Energy shields flickered into existence around the entire colony, powerful enough to stop a battleship's main guns. And from the tunnels beneath the surface, fighter craft launched into space, swarming toward the Veklari fleet like angry hornets defending their hive. "Defensive fire," Vex Prime shouted. "Destroy those platforms." Her ships opened fire, but their weapons splashed harmlessly against the colony's shields. The shields had been designed specifically to counter Veklari weapons, using technology that humanity had developed while pretending to demilitarize. The Veklari had never seen shields this powerful before because humanity had never revealed them until this moment. The human fighter craft reached the Veklari ships and began their attack. They were small and fast, using tactics that the Veklari had never encountered. They did not try to destroy the big ships, instead targeting engines and weapon systems, crippling the fleet's ability to fight or flee. Corporal Taeyang O led the ground forces that emerged from the colony's hidden military base. His soldiers did not look like farmers and teachers anymore. They wore combat armor and carried weapons that made the Veklari's equipment look primitive by comparison. They did not fear the Veklari landing forces that began dropping from the ships. They had trained for 5 years for exactly this scenario. "Remember your training," Taeyang said calmly over the command channel. "They expect us to be afraid. Show them what humans are really made of." The Veklari soldiers that landed near the colony found themselves facing an enemy that should not exist. These were supposed to be helpless civilians, soft and weak from years of peace. Instead, they faced professional soldiers who knew every Veclari tactic and had prepared countermeasures for all of them. The battle for Haven's Gate lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 12 Veclari warships had been disabled or destroyed. The 4 that survived retreated in disorder, transmitting confused reports about impossible human defenses and weapons that should not exist. But Haven's Gate was just one battle. Across human space, the same scene played out at 47 other colonies. The Veclari had planned a simultaneous attack that would overwhelm humanity with speed and numbers. Instead, they found every target heavily defended, every colony a trap, every easy victory turning into a nightmare. Captain Narration commanded the human warship Indomitable, one of the vessels that officially did not exist. Her ship had spent 5 years hiding in the darkness beyond charted space, waiting for this moment. Now she stood on her bridge watching as the Veclari invasion fleet committed itself fully to the attack on human colonies. "All ships prepare for jump," she said calmly. "Target coordinates Veclari home system." The Veclari had sent 400 ships to attack humanity. That left their homeworlds defended by fewer than 50 vessels, because they never imagined humanity could strike back while under invasion. They never imagined that humanity had been building a fleet in secret, waiting for exactly this moment. 240 human warships emerged from hyperspace around the Veclari homeworld. The defending ships tried to respond, but they were outnumbered 5 to 1 and facing technology they had never seen before. Human weapons that had been hidden for 5 years, designed specifically to counter Veclari defenses. Human shields that made Veclari weapons almost useless. Human tactics that turned every Veclari strength into a weakness. "This is Captain Narration to all Veclari military forces," she broadcast on all channels. "Your invasion fleet is trapped at our colonies. Your bioweapons have failed. Your homeworld is now under our guns. You have one choice: surrender immediately, or we will destroy every military installation in your system." On the Veclari homeworld, in the council chamber where they had planned humanity's extinction, the council members stared at their displays in disbelief. This was impossible. The humans were supposed to be weak, unprepared, helpless. How could they have a fleet that the Veclari never detected? How could they be attacking while being invaded? The truth was beginning to dawn on them, cold and terrible. The humans had known. They had always known. The peace treaty, the demilitarization, the apparent weakness, all of it had been an act. Humanity had spent 5 years preparing for this exact moment, and the Veclari had never suspected a thing. Back at the human colonies, the Veclari invasion fleet received news from their home world. Their ships were stranded deep in enemy territory. Their surprise attack had failed, and their entire civilization was now hostage to human mercy. War Queen Vex Prime, who had been so confident that morning, now faced a choice between surrender and extinction. She chose surrender. Every Veclari war leader made the same choice. They had planned to exterminate humanity. Instead, they found themselves completely defeated in less than a day. Admiral Soman Kang received the surrender reports in her command center on Luna. She had not slept in 36 hours, but she did not feel tired. She felt something else, something cold and satisfied. "Confirm all Veclari forces have stood down," she ordered. "Begin Phase 2 of Protocol Serpent. Secure all Veclari military installations. Disable all warships. Place occupation forces on their homeworlds." Commander Hyun Park stood beside her. "We won," he said simply. "No," Soman corrected. "We prepared properly and they underestimated us. That is not the same as winning. Winning is what comes next." Across the galaxy, other species watched the battle reports with shock. Humanity, which everyone had believed was becoming weak and peaceful, had just destroyed the most aggressive military power in known space in a single day. The implications would take years to fully understand. But one thing was immediately clear to every species that saw what happened. The humans had not just defeated the Veclari. They had done something far more impressive. They had been patient enough to let their enemy think they were winning, smart enough to prepare in secret, and disciplined enough to wait 5 years for the perfect moment to strike. The Veclari had thought they were hunting prey. They never realized they were the prey all along. 5 years had passed since the treaty was signed, and the galaxy looked at humanity with approval. The humans had kept their promises. They had reduced their military fleet, at least as far as anyone could see. They had opened their borders to trade. They had welcomed Veclari visitors to their colonies. They had shared their music, their art, their culture. They seemed to have truly embraced peace. Dr. Yunahan stood in her laboratory on Haven's Gate, a human colony in the demilitarized zone. The colony had been built after the treaty, a symbol of human commitment to peaceful expansion. It had farms and schools and markets. It looked like a place where people planned to live normal, quiet lives. Children played in the streets. Traders sold their goods. Everything seemed perfect. Yuna stared at the sample under her microscope and felt her blood run cold. She had been studying Veclari trade goods for 3 months now, ever since a shipment of exotic foods had arrived from the collective. The foods were delicious and popular with the colonists. But Yuna had a suspicious mind, and she always checked everything that came from the Veclari. What she found was not food poisoning or simple contamination. It was much worse. Hidden inside the cellular structure of the Veclari foods were microscopic machines, so small that regular scanners would miss them. They were inactive now, dormant, but Yuna recognized their design. They were weapons, bioweapons that could be activated by a specific signal, and when they activated, they would kill every human who had consumed them. She immediately sent her findings through the secure military channel, using encryption that the Veclari were not supposed to know existed. Within an hour, she received a reply. Just 2 words. Keep watching. Not evacuate the colony. Not arrest the Veclari traders. Just keep watching. Yuna understood. If humanity reacted, the Veclari would know their plan was discovered. Better to let them think it was working. Better to secretly develop countermeasures. Better to add this to the growing list of Veclari betrayals that would be answered when the time came. Yuna went back to her work, developing an antidote that would neutralize the nano-weapons. She would not tell the colonists. They needed to keep acting normal, keep seeming innocent and unsuspecting. But when the Veclari finally activated their weapons, they would find that their poison had been turned to water. Across the sector, Lieutenant Ji-won Kim tracked ship movements from her post on the monitoring station Vigilance. Her job was supposed to be simple, just making sure that trade ships followed the proper routes through the demilitarized zones. But Ji-won had noticed something strange. Veclari freighters were making stops that were not on their flight plans. Small stops, only a few hours, near asteroids that seemed to have nothing of value. At first she thought maybe they were having mechanical problems, but it happened too often, and always near asteroids in strategic positions, places where you could hide ships or build secret bases. Ji-won began tracking all Veclari ship movements in her sector. She used passive scanners, the kind that could not be detected. She worked during her off hours, telling no one what she was doing. After 2 months, she had a map of 17 locations where Veclari ships made mysterious stops. She sent her report through secure channels. The response came quickly, confirmed. 38 more locations identified in other sectors. Continue monitoring. The Veclari were building a network of hidden bases throughout the demilitarized zones. Bases that would allow them to strike at human colonies without warning. Bases that violated the treaty in the most fundamental way, but humanity did not confront them, did not call them out, did not even hint that they knew, because humanity was doing the same thing, only better. Yak Bey ran a small freight company, or at least that was what his business license said. His ships carried supplies to remote colonies, boring cargo like food and tools and medical supplies. Nobody paid much attention to freight haulers. They were part of the background of space, always there, never interesting. That was exactly why Hyuk's ships were equipped with some of the most advanced surveillance technology humanity could build. His routes took him through Veclari space, past their military installations, near their shipyards. His ships looked old and slow, but their sensors missed nothing. During one routine supply run to a border station, Hyuk's communication officer picked up a tight beam transmission from a Veclari military vessel. It was encrypted, but human code breakers were very good at their jobs. Within 6 hours, the message was decoded. Hyuk read it 3 times to make sure he understood. It was an invasion timeline. Exact dates, exact targets. Every human colony, every station, every major military installation. The Veclari were planning to hit them all at once in less than a year. He transmitted the information through the secure network and received the expected response. Acknowledged. Proceed with normal operations, as if the galaxy was not about to explode into war again, as if humanity had not just learned the exact date of its planned extermination. But Hayuk understood. The Veclari could not know that their communications were compromised, could not know that every step of their plan was being monitored and countered. Yuk continued his supply runs, acting like a simple merchant with no concerns beyond profit. But every ship he visited, every colony he supplied, received special cargo hidden among the normal goods: weapons, military-grade shields, ammunition, medical supplies for combat casualties. Everything was disguised, everything looked innocent. But Haven's Gate and 100 other civilian colonies were becoming armed fortresses. Back on the Veclari homeworld, in the council chambers where strategy was decided, the leaders of the collective reviewed their intelligence reports on humanity. The reports were encouraging. Human military fleets had been reduced, just as the treaty required. Their colonies were undefended. Their people had grown soft, focused on trade and culture instead of war. The humans seemed to truly believe that peace would last. "They are weak," one council member said, its mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "They have forgotten how to fight." "They never knew how to fight," another replied. "They only survived our first invasion through luck and desperation. This time there will be no survival. We will sweep through their colonies like fire through dry grass." The Veclari did not know that their council chambers were not as secure as they believed. They did not know that Captain Doyen Choi had spent 5 years altering his genetic structure, making himself appear to be Veclari. They did not know that he stood in their halls, listened to their plans, and reported everything back to human command. Doyen had sacrificed everything for this mission. His human appearance was gone, replaced by chitin and compound eyes. His body had been restructured at the genetic level, a process so painful that most humans could not survive it. But he survived, and he became the perfect spy. He heard the Veclari Council set the invasion date. He heard them laugh about how easy it would be. He heard them plan the extermination of his entire species, and he reported it all, knowing that every word they spoke brought them closer to their own destruction. On Earth, in the secret command bunker deep beneath the lunar surface, Admiral Soman Kang reviewed the intelligence reports from hundreds of sources. Yuna's discovery of the bioweapons, Jiwan's map of hidden bases, Hyok's intercepted invasion timeline, Doyen's confirmation from inside the Veclari Council itself. Every piece of information was added to the master plan, the grand strategy that humanity had been building since the day the treaty was signed. The Veclari thought they were manipulating humanity. They thought they were the clever predators, setting a trap for naive prey. They had no idea that humanity had been setting a trap within a trap. Status of Hidden Fleet? Soman asked her command staff. "Construction complete, Admiral. 240 ships, all equipped with weapons the Veclari have never seen. All crews are trained and ready. All ships are positioned beyond the edge of charted space, invisible to Veclari sensors. Status of colony defenses. Every settlement in the demilitarized zones now has underground bunkers, shield generators, and enough firepower to hold off a Veclari battle group. The colonists do not know they are living on top of military bases, but they are. Countermeasures to the bioweapons. Dr. Yuna Han's antidote has been distributed through the water supply of every affected colony. The Veclari nanoweapons will be neutralized the moment they receive an activation signal." Soman allowed herself a small smile. "Then we are ready. When they strike, we will be waiting, and they will learn that humanity does not forget, and humanity does not forgive." The peace continued for another 327 days. To the outside galaxy it seemed perfect and permanent. But both sides knew the truth. War was coming. The only question was who would strike first and who would survive. "You've declared war on the galaxy's deadliest. Well done." 18 months after the attack on New Jeju, the human fleet arrived at the Talvek homeworld. 200 warships surrounded the planet, cutting off all escape routes. The species that had been victims was now the conqueror. Admiral Hyojin commanded from her flagship, the Unity. She looked at the blue-green world below. Billions of Talvek lived there. Civilians who had nothing to do with the war. She felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. "Send the message," she ordered. The transmission went to every Talvek receiver on the planet and in orbit. "This is Admiral He Jin of the United Colonial Defense Force. Your military has been defeated. Your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies are liberated or occupied. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will reduce your defenses to rubble and invade. Choose wisely. The Talvek High Command met in emergency session. They had 36 warships left, hidden in orbital stations around their homeworld. Against 200 human ships, they meant nothing. The empire that had conquered 47 systems was finished. Some commanders wanted to fight to the last. Others recognized reality. The debate raged for 50 minutes. Finally, the council leader made a decision. Contact the Galactic Council. Request their mediation. Perhaps they can save us from complete destruction. The Galactic Council convened immediately. The chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species. Everyone wanted to see how this ended. Ambassador Chulwu sat in the human delegation box, his expression neutral. The Talvek ambassador approached him, desperation clear in his movements. Please, there must be terms we can negotiate. We will withdraw from all occupied territories. We will pay reparations. We will disarm. Just call off your fleet, Chulwu stood. He addressed the entire council, not just the Talvek. 18 months ago, the Talvek attacked us without warning. They killed thousands of civilians. They occupied our worlds. They enslaved our people. When we asked this council for help, you did nothing. You said it was unfortunate but inevitable. You told us to accept our fate. He paused, letting the words sink in. We didn't accept it. We fought back. We built weapons. We learned warfare. We adapted. And we won. Now the Talvek come to you begging for mercy. They want you to save them from the consequences of their actions. Why should we listen? You stood silent when we burned. We'll stand silent while they beg. The council chamber erupted in argument. Some species supported the Talvek, calling for restraint. Others remained quiet, watching to see what humanity would do. The hour expired. Admiral Heejin received no surrender. She gave the order. Begin orbital bombardment. Military targets only. Minimize civilian casualties. The human fleet opened fire. Precision strikes destroyed Talvek defense platforms, military bases, and shipyards. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Talvek military infrastructure was gone. The planet was defenseless. The Talvek High Command finally sent their surrender. Unconditional and complete. Admiral Heijin transmitted the terms. Complete dismantling of all military forces. War reparations equal to 50 years of your gross domestic product. Human occupation forces will remain for 50 years to ensure compliance. Your empire is dissolved. Your conquered territories are free. These terms are not negotiable. The Talvek had no choice. They accepted. Colonel Bora led the occupation force. 10,000 soldiers landed on the Talvek homeworld to ensure the terms were enforced. She established headquarters in the former imperial palace. The symbolism was deliberate. The occupation was strict but not cruel. Humans didn't seek revenge on civilians. They wanted to ensure the Talvek could never threaten anyone again. Military equipment was destroyed. Weapons factories were dismantled. The species that had conquered through force was reduced to a defensive posture. Lieutenant Jiwoo stood in the imperial palace, remembering the occupation of New Jeju. She had survived as a hunted resistance fighter. Now she stood in the enemy's capital as a conqueror. The journey had taken 18 months and cost millions of lives. A young Talvek civilian approached her, nervous. Will you kill us all? Jiwoo looked at the young alien, fear in their eyes, the same fear she had felt during the occupation. No, she said. We're not monsters. We'll occupy your world. We'll disarm your military and we'll make sure you never threaten anyone again. But we won't slaughter civilians. That's what separates us from you. The Galactic Council held a formal session to recognize the war's end. Ambassador Chulwu represented humanity. The council leader, a being from an ancient species, addressed the assembly. The Galactic Council formally recognizes humanity as a first-tier species with full military rights and protections. The Human United Colonial Defense Force has proven itself capable of defending its territories and projecting power across multiple systems. Chulwu accepted the recognition but added his own statement. We didn't want to be a military power. We wanted to farm, create art, and explore. The Talvek forced us to become warriors. Every species here should remember that. Peace is our preference. War is our capability. Don't confuse the two. Several species in the council shifted uncomfortably. They had watched humanity transform from peaceful traders to a military force that defeated an empire. The implications were clear. Humanity was not to be threatened. Dr. Kyung-soo returned to his laboratory. The weapons research would continue, but now he could also return to peaceful science. The technology developed during the war could be adapted for terraforming, medicine, and exploration. Humanity had learned to fight, but they hadn't forgotten how to build. Engineer Sung-ho designed new ships. Some were warships, maintaining the UCDF's strength. Others were colony ships. Humanity would expand into the galaxy, and now they had the power to defend their expansion. General Haiwan accepted promotion to Supreme Commander of all human military forces. She had led humanity through the darkest days of the war. Now she would lead them into an uncertain peace. "We must remain strong," she told the graduating class at the new military academy. "Not because we want war, but because we know what happens when we're weak. We chose peace once. Others chose war. We'll never be unprepared again." Captain Minji, now an admiral, commanded the new stealth fleet. 50 advanced ships that could go anywhere undetected. They would ensure humanity always knew what threats existed in the galaxy. Sergeant Hyunwoo retired from active service. He had fought in every major battle of the war. His body bore scars from a dozen worlds. He became an instructor, teaching new soldiers the lessons learned in blood. The liberated colonies rebuilt. New Jeju rose from the ashes. Arcturus flourished again. Centauri expanded. Humanity's 12 worlds became 20, then 30. The species that had almost been conquered now expanded confidently into the galaxy. Other aggressive species watched humanity's expansion and quietly abandoned their plans. The Krell Dominion, which had been planning to raid human shipping, decided to seek trade agreements instead. The Vex Collective, known for territorial expansion, went around human space rather than through it. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Humanity was dangerous, not because they were naturally violent, but because they could become violent when necessary. They had the industrial capacity to build fleets. They had the creativity to develop new weapons. They had the determination to never surrender. And most importantly, they remembered. Admiral Hyejin stood on Earth looking up at the stars. She thought about Captain Taemin and the thousands of others who had died in the war. They had sacrificed everything so humanity could survive. "We won," she said quietly. "But the cost was terrible. We became what we had to become. Now we have to choose what we'll be going forward." Ambassador Chulwoo addressed the Galactic Council one final time before returning to Earth. "Humanity will continue to expand. We'll establish new colonies. We'll develop new technologies. We'll trade with peaceful species and defend ourselves against aggressive ones. But we'll also remember this war. We'll remember that we asked for peace and received violence. We'll remember that when we needed help, you offered none. And we'll remember that we survived alone. From now on, humanity stands ready to help others who face what we faced. But we'll never forget that in our darkest hour, we stood alone." The council listened in silence. The message was clear. Humanity would be a force in the galaxy now. They could be allies or enemies. The choice would be up to other species. On the Talvik homeworld, the occupation continued. Schools taught a new history, one that included the war and its lessons. Young Talvik learned that strength alone wasn't enough, that underestimating an opponent could destroy an empire, that peace was valuable. Some Talvik resented the occupation. Others accepted it. All understood that their old empire was gone forever. They would rebuild, but as a peaceful species, not conquerors. The war ended officially on a cold day in December. Exactly 18 months after it began, General Haiwan signed the final peace treaty in the Imperial Palace on the Talvik homeworld. Colonel Bora and Lieutenant Jiwoo stood witness. "It's over," Haiwan said. "We won, but I hope we never have to do this again." Jiwoo thought about the young Talvik who had asked if humans would kill them all. "We became warriors because we had to. Now we get to choose what will be." The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound that echoed through the silent hall. Commander Hyun Park walked behind Ambassador Minji Lee, his face calm and unreadable. They wore their best uniforms, clean and pressed, with medals that represented 30 years of brutal war against the Veclari Collective. Behind them walked Captain Doyen Choi, his hand resting near his sidearm out of habit. Even though weapons were forbidden in this place, the chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from 100 different species. Today it held only two groups, the humans on one side and the Veclari on the other. The Viclari looked like insects that had grown too large, with multiple arms and eyes that gleamed like black glass. Their bodies clicked and chittered as they moved, a sound that still made some humans reach for weapons that were not there. Ambassador Minji Lee stepped up to the central platform. Bright lights shined down on her, making her look small and fragile. She smiled, though her eyes remained sharp. The cameras from 1,000 worlds watched this moment. Everyone wanted to see if peace was truly possible after so much death. "Today we end the killing," Minji said, her voice carrying through the chamber. "Today we choose to build instead of destroy. Today humanity extends its hand in friendship to the Viclari collective." The Viclari representative stepped forward. It called itself Thex 9, though humans suspected that was not really a name, just a designation. Thex 9 raised 3 of its 6 arms in what the translators said was a gesture of peace. "The collective agrees," Thex 9 said through the translator device that turned its clicking sounds into human words. "We have fought long enough. Now we will share our worlds, our trade, and our knowledge. This treaty will bind our peoples together in prosperity." Commander Hyun Park stood perfectly still as the words washed over him. His eyes tracked every Viclari in the room. He counted 12 of them, but he knew there were more hidden in the walls. The Viclari never went anywhere without backup. Neither did humans, but the humans were better at hiding it. The treaty documents appeared on holographic displays, floating in the air where everyone could see them. Pages and pages of legal text written in both human languages and Viclari notation. It promised so much. Shared technology, open trade routes, demilitarized zones where neither side could station warships, joint research projects, cultural exchanges, everything that peace should bring. Minji stepped forward and pressed her hand to the scanning plate. Her biometric signature locked into the treaty, binding humanity to its words. The crowd that watched from their distant worlds cheered. Finally, peace. Finally, no more sons and daughters dying in the cold dark of space. Thex 9 pressed its primary appendage to its own scanning plate. The Viclari signature locked in. The treaty was now official, recognized by the Galactic Council and every major civilization in known space. "Let this be the beginning of a new age," Minji said, and her voice was thick with emotion. Many who watched believed she was holding back tears of joy. Commander Hyun Park watched Thex 9 carefully. He had spent 15 years studying the Viclari, learning their biology, their culture, their psychology. He knew things that most humans did not. The hidden sensors in his uniform, so small they could not be detected, were feeding him data. The Viclari biosignatures showed stress markers, not the stress of nervousness or fear, the stress of deception. The ceremony continued for another hour. Speeches were given. Promises were made. Representatives from neutral species congratulated both sides on their wisdom and maturity. The whole galaxy seemed to exhale a breath it had been holding for 3 decades. When it was finally over, the humans and Viclari were expected to mingle, to share drinks, to begin the process of becoming friends instead of enemies. Minji Lee played her part perfectly, laughing at Viclari jokes that the translators struggled to convey, asking questions about their home worlds with apparent fascination. Captain Doyen Choi moved through the crowd like a shadow, saying little, watching everything. He memorized faces, if that was what you could call the complex arrangement of eyes and mandibles that the Viclari had. He noted which ones watched the humans most carefully, which ones stayed near the exits, which ones touched their communication devices when they thought no one was looking. After 3 hours of celebration, the humans were finally allowed to return to their ship. The transport vessel that carried them back to the human fleet was silent. No one spoke. The cameras and recording devices from the ceremony were far behind them now. Only when they were in the secured briefing room, surrounded by jamming fields and security protocols, did Commander Hyun Park finally speak. "They lied," he said simply. Every word was a lie. "I know," Minji said. She was no longer smiling. Her face was hard and cold. The bioscans confirmed deception markers throughout the entire ceremony. They were especially elevated when Thex 9 mentioned the demilitarized zones and technology sharing. Captain Doyen Choi pulled up a holographic display. I tagged 17 Viclari operatives who were watching our military personnel. They were taking detailed scans, probably trying to assess our weapons technology and defensive capabilities. Minji nodded slowly. "How long do we have?" Based on the invasion plans we captured during the war and assuming they stick to their standard operational procedures, I estimate 5 years. Maybe 6. They will use this piece to position their forces, identify our weak points, and develop countermeasures to our weapons. Then they will strike all at once, hitting every human world simultaneously. Then we have 5 years to prepare, Minji said. She touched her communication device. Admiral Soman, this is Lee. Initiate Protocol Serpent. Authorization code. The Viper sleeps with open eyes. Far away on the dark side of Earth's moon, massive blast doors began to open in secret bases that were not supposed to exist. Ships that had been under construction in hidden shipyards powered up their engines. Soldiers who had never officially been demobilized received their activation orders. Scientists who were supposed to be working on civilian projects opened their real research files. Commander Hyun Park looked at the holographic image of the peace treaty, still floating in the air. They think they played us, he said quietly. They think we are naive and trusting. They think this peace will make us weak. Good, Minji said. Let them think that. Let them believe we are fools who actually trusted them. Every day they believe that lie is another day we have to prepare. When they finally strike, they will learn what humanity really is. Doyen smiled, but it was not a kind smile. We knew this was coming. We have always known. Yes, Hyun said. And now the real game begins. They will spend 5 years preparing to destroy us. We will spend 5 years preparing to destroy them. The difference is they think they are the only ones playing. The 3 humans stood in silence, looking at the treaty that the whole galaxy celebrated. Behind them, in the darkness of space, humanity's true strength began to wake up. The peace treaty was signed. The war, the real war, was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the failed Veclari invasion, and the galaxy looked very different now. The Veclari Collective, which had terrorized peaceful species for 2,000 years, no longer existed as a military power. Their warships sat in human-controlled shipyards stripped of weapons and engines. Their military bases had been dismantled. Their homeworlds were occupied by human peacekeeping forces that made sure the Veclari could never threaten anyone again. Ambassador Minji Lee stood in what used to be the Veclari Council Chamber, the same room where Veclari leaders had planned the extermination of humanity, the same room where they had laughed about how easy it would be to trick the naive humans into believing in peace. Now human guards stood at every entrance, and the surviving Veclari Council members sat in chairs that felt more like cages, waiting to hear their fate. Minji looked different than she had during the treaty signing 5 years ago. She no longer wore the soft smile and gentle manner that had made the Veclari think she was naive and easily fooled. Her face was cold and professional, the face of someone who had spent 5 years playing a role so perfectly that an entire species had believed the lie. You wonder how we knew, Minji said, her voice echoing in the chamber. You have been asking that question for 6 months. How did the humans know about your invasion plans? How did we know about your bioweapons? How did we prepare so completely for something that was supposed to be a surprise? The Veclari Council members remained silent. They had learned in the past 6 months that silence was safer than speaking. Let me explain, Minji continued. Not because you deserve to know, but because the galaxy needs to understand what happened here. During the war, before the treaty, we captured one of your command vessels. You never knew we captured it because we destroyed our own ships to make it look like everyone died. But we saved the crew and we took your ship and we learned everything. She activated a holographic display that showed the captured Veclari vessel and all the information it had contained. Your entire strategic database, your history of making false peace treaties and then betraying them, the 17 species you have destroyed over 2,000 years using the exact same pattern. We learned that in Veclari culture, peace negotiations are just another form of warfare. One of the Veclari Council members finally spoke, its voice bitter through the translator. If you knew we would betray the treaty, why did you sign it? Because we wanted you to betray it, Minji said simply. We needed time to prepare and we needed you to be confident and careless. The treaty was not your idea. It was ours. We manipulated your intelligence services to make you think peace was in your interest. We let you believe you were playing us when in reality, every move you made was exactly what we wanted you to do. She walked slowly around the chamber, looking at each council member. You spent 5 years positioning your forces, building hidden bases, developing bioweapons. You thought you were being clever. You did not realize that we were watching every single thing you did. Captain Doyen Choi spent 5 years living among you. His body altered to look like one of you, listening to every plan you made. The council members shifted uncomfortably. The idea that a human had walked among them for 5 years, that their security had been penetrated so completely, was deeply disturbing to them. Your bioweapons were very impressive, Minji continued. They should have killed every human who consumed them. Dr. Yuna Han found them 3 years ago. She developed a countermeasure that we distributed through our water systems. Every human was inoculated without even knowing they were in danger. When you activated your weapons, expecting billions of deaths, nothing happened. Must have been very confusing for you. Admiral Somin Kang entered the chamber. She wore her full dress uniform, covered in medals that represented 30 years of military service. She looked at the Veclari Council with eyes that held no sympathy and no mercy. I am here to deliver humanity's judgment, Somin said formally. You attempted genocide. You violated the peace treaty in every way possible. You tried to exterminate my species. Under galactic law, we would be justified in doing the same to you. The Veclari waited for the sentence they believed was coming. They had tried to destroy humanity. Now humanity would destroy them. It was the logical outcome, the way war had always worked. But we will not, Somin continued. We will not exterminate you because, unlike you, humanity actually believes in peace. We will not commit genocide because we are better than you are. Instead, we will ensure you can never threaten anyone again. Commander Hyun Park stepped forward, carrying a data tablet. These are the terms. Your military is permanently disbanded. You are forbidden from building warships or developing weapons for the next 100 years. Human observers will remain on your worlds to ensure compliance. Your home system becomes a protectorate under human administration until you can prove you have changed your cultural approach to other species. You are making us slaves, one council member said angrily. No, Hyun replied coldly. Slaves have no choice. You had a choice. You chose to betray peace. You chose to attempt genocide. These consequences are the result of your choices. Be grateful that humanity is merciful enough to let you survive them. Minji activated another holographic display, this one showing the evidence that human intelligence had gathered over 5 years. Recordings of Veclari Council meetings where they laughed about killing human children. Documents showing the bioweapon programs that violated a dozen galactic treaties. Maps of the hidden military bases in the demilitarized zones. Intercepted communications discussing invasion timetables. This evidence has been shared with every major species in the galaxy, Minji said. Everyone now knows what you planned. Everyone now knows that humanity's response was defensive, not aggressive. The galaxy supports our actions because they understand we prevented genocide, not committed it. She looked at the council members with something that might have been pity, though it was hard to tell. You underestimated humanity. That was your fatal mistake. You saw our desire for peace and thought it meant weakness. You forgot that the most dangerous opponent is not the one who loves war, but the one who prepares for it while hoping it never comes. Intelligence Director Sunho Ryu had been standing quietly in the corner, but now he spoke. During your trial, we reviewed your species' entire history. 2,000 years of aggression, 17 species destroyed, hundreds of false peace treaties. You have been predators for your entire existence. You cannot even imagine a relationship that is not based on domination. That ends now, Somin said firmly. Over the next century, human educators and cultural advisors will work with your people to change how you think about other species. You will learn that cooperation is possible. You will learn that peace can be real. You will learn that strength does not have to mean conquest. And if we refuse, a council member asked. Then your species becomes extinct, Somin said without emotion. Not because we will destroy you, but because you will destroy yourselves. The galaxy is tired of your aggression. The next species you attack will not be as merciful as humanity. We are giving you a chance to survive by changing. Whether you take that chance is up to you. The sentencing continued for another hour, laying out exactly how Veclari society would be restructured. It was not cruel, but it was absolute. The Veclari would survive, but they would survive as a changed species, one that could no longer threaten the peace of the galaxy. When it was over, Minji walked out of the council chamber with Somin, Hyun, and Sunho. They stood in the corridor outside, finally able to relax now that the formal proceedings were complete. Do you think they will change? Minji asked. Some will, Hyun said. The younger generation especially. They have seen that aggression leads only to defeat. Given time and guidance, they can become different than what they were. And if they do not? Minji asked. Then we will be watching, Sunho said quietly. We will always be watching now. The galaxy has learned that humanity does not forget and does not forgive those who threaten genocide. That lesson will keep the peace better than any treaty. They walked through the corridors of the Veclari government complex, past human soldiers who stood guard, past Veclari civilians who watched them with fear and confusion. Eventually, they reached the transport pad that would take them back to the human fleet. Before they left, Samin paused and looked back at the complex. I still remember the day we signed that treaty, she said softly. I remember how the galaxy celebrated. They thought the war was over. They did not know it was just beginning. It is over now, Yun said. Truly over, is it? Soman asked. Or did we just teach the galaxy a new lesson? That humanity will go to any length, wait any amount of time, and do whatever is necessary to protect itself. I wonder if that lesson will keep the peace or just make others afraid of us. Perhaps both, Minji said. Perhaps fear and respect together are what true peace looks like. Not the naive hope I pretended to have 5 years ago, but a realistic understanding that aggression has consequences. They boarded the transport and left the Veclari homeworld behind. As their ship climbed into orbit, they could see the human fleet that surrounded the planet.